Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Best Western Hotels and Resorts, Dorothy Darling.
Well, good morning, everyone. 2018 is the year of the woman, and it's GBTA's 50th anniversary, and I can't think of a more significant milestone for us to be able to celebrate with these powerful women, and I'm so grateful for the GBTA leadership to allow me this opportunity to be with these amazing women on stage with you today. And I'd like to introduce each one of them with a word that I think, for me, has defined them to me. So Melissa and I have known each other a very long time. We met when she was the SVP of Supplier Relations at Expedia. And the word that I would use to define Melissa is formidable. And the reason why I say that is that when I think about formidable, it's people that inspire awe. And she is one of the most powerful women that I have come to know over the years because she is the most amazing negotiator. She comes prepared. She comes in terms of knowing all of the outcomes that she wants to drive to, but she does it with class and grace so that even when you don't get exactly what you had hoped for, because she is tough, you always feel very good about the outcome. So Melissa, I'm delighted to be on stage with you.
Thank you, likewise. Thank you.
Jody is someone that I have just recently met, and the word that I would use to define her is accomplished. Jody cut her teeth at P&G, which is one of those blue chip companies that we all aspire to coming out of graduate school to join. It is one of those organizations that builds discipline and rigor in terms of everything you do. And the fact that she spent 30 years advancing her career in IT and then marketing, 17 years in IT, 13 years in marketing, leading a lot of women-based products like baby care. And she was the one behind the Olympic campaign in terms of thanking your mom. I think that we are also very fortunate to have her on stage with us today. So thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Dorothy.
And Tracy Mercer, who leads supplier relations at Sabre, the word that I have chosen to describe her is courageous. This is a woman who has taken measured risks throughout her career. And when I heard about all of the choices that she has made to change jobs, take a position in Asia Pac for 3 years, which to me is a very tough breeding ground in terms of leadership, and the kind of vision and change management that she's bringing to Sabre, I'm also very proud to share the stage with Tracy. So thank you. So how about we get started? The first question is really about what is your company doing to foster women leadership, and what are the kind of obstacles that women confront in their jobs, and how can companies really help turn those obstacles into opportunities? Melissa, let's start with you.
Thank you. So fostering women in leadership is very important to us at Expedia and to me personally. And we know that women in leadership drive strong results. And we also know through a number of studies that diversity in leadership also proves better productivity. So we believe that fostering women in leadership at Expedia is core to what we do, from our CEO level through the ranks with all of our brands, Expedia, Hotels.com, Agencia, and we start at the beginning. We start at the job description. We use a software called Textio that goes through all of our job descriptions and makes sure that we have verbiage that is neutral and not too masculine or not too feminine. And then the next step is the interview process. We've put in place a pretty rigorous change in our interview process where we make sure that we have one female candidate in every interview loop that we bring through and an interviewer that is female in every panel. And we do that across the company, and that's been a really interesting move for us and has taken a little bit longer to get qualified candidates, but it's definitely worth it in the long run.
Well, that's very impressive in terms of building in that systemic change in terms of really creating a different way of selecting and recruiting candidates, Melissa. Jody, how about you? What's different at Hertz, and how are you really leading the way with a woman CEO?
Yeah, so, as Kathy Marinello has come in, she really has increased the discipline around our people processes, starting with the identification of our high-performance employees, but with a special focus on women and diversity. As we're doing that and identifying the high-performance employees, one of the things that we've noticed is that the biggest challenge that women face is really being put into those crucible roles where they're learning new skills, where they're being stretched beyond their limits. And frankly, it's a two-sided thing. We're having to coach the women that while it might be outside their comfort zone, it's really the career builder that they need. And then we're working with the managers to help them understand that giving those challenging opportunities to our women is exactly the skill set that they need to be able to be ready for that next promotion. So that's a big focus area of ours. And we really strongly believe that diversity is a business builder. And it's great having Kathy having come in. I think she's been a great role model in showing how she has filled her leadership positions with very diverse candidates. And I'm really excited. We're going to have a new Chief Information Officer that will join us the week after next, also a female, very accomplished female from Allstate. So I just can't be more excited to be part of such a diverse leadership team.
Well, congratulations, Jody. I think giving women that chance to really lead a P&L side of the business really allows them to achieve in ways that allows them to advance their career. Tracy, how about you? You sort of straddle that technology space, which is one of those areas that is very difficult for women to advance. What is Sabre doing to really change that game?
Yeah, it's interesting at Sabre because we are obviously in the travel sector and have been here for a while, but we are defined as a technology company. If you look at just the stats, we're doing pretty good. For a technology company, about 40% of our workforce is female. And for a technology company, relative to other best-in-class, we sit pretty good. But I think the devil's in the details as you break it down. Some of the things, the basics we have covered. Interview slates, making sure you have a female in the interview. Both interviewees and interviewers. Those are pretty basics. Making sure that you celebrate, talk about, and include diversity and inclusion, that's an element. For us, the magic really happened as we started looking at this regionally. Because whether we can talk about it here in North America, it's very different when you go talk about it in other countries and in other cultures or in other sectors. And that was an important element for us in being able to empower our team. The three takeaways I think about for Sabre is one, walk the talk. So first of all, we have 2 women on our board, and we have 2 women on our E-team. We just welcomed a second. Those are important steps. Is that good enough? No, but it's great to have that. There's many companies in this room that don't have women on their board, don't have women in their executive leadership team. Start with that, because that is a path and a vision for your employees to seek towards, okay? The next step is talk the talk. Don't be afraid to have the discussions, the metrics. Numbers can neutralize if it's an uncomfortable conversation. Just measure it and talk about it. And talking about it even on Women's Day and other areas, that talking the talk helps bring that conversation forward. And then finally, engage your employees. We started a group called the Sabre Women Exchange. It's a part of our employee engagement group. And I think for us that talk the talk, walk the walk, and engage your employees has really helped us drive forward. We're not there yet. We've got more to do, but that's kind of the path that we're on.
One of the things I was very impressed with when I spoke with all of these women is how mature their diversity initiatives are and how committed and passionate they all are. So thank you for sharing that. I know the audience really wants to understand your personal leadership journey and how you actually traverse that journey. Who is important to you? Jody, maybe you can start and share that with us.
Sure. As Dorothy said, I spent my first 17 years at Procter & Gamble in IT. My last assignment in IT was working on our business in Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East, Africa, which was certainly a very stretching role. And in that course, I managed to travel to 64 countries in 4 years, implementing SAP and really leading the tax restructure project. And believe it or not, from there, I got put on a broadening assignment as the marketing director in baby care. Couldn't have been 2 more extremes. And really what I've learned from that, I had a wonderful gentleman by the name of Werner Geisler who facilitated that and really built up my confidence that I could go and do that and make that drastic change. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It really put me out of my comfort zone, and it made me learn and grow in ways that I never expected. And so for me, the biggest thing in my career has been always trying to put myself outside of my comfort zone. And as I now am mentoring younger people, especially younger women, really encouraging them that, you know what, a career is like a roller coaster. And if you're not feeling those butterflies, you're not growing. That's the exciting part. What comes along with that is some failures along the way. I'm a big believer that you learn your most through failures. Yeah, you need to be ready to pick yourself up quickly and learn from it and move forward. But I think if you think of your career as a roller coaster and always look for those butterflies, that's really the learning that I've had.
That's great advice. Tracy, you, as I said, have made a lot of courageous moves. What would you share with the audience in terms about the journey that you've been on?
My path, I've been really blessed with some amazing leadership, working for some amazing companies, many of which are in the room. And I think every company that you work for, the stance that they take shapes you. Every leader that you work for, some are in the room, some of which gave me advice right before coming on the panel. It shapes you into who you are. And whether you work for the most amazing person or the worst boss that you've ever worked for, that helps you become better. It's all in how you respond to it. For me, I think the path that shaped me the most was not being afraid. And to be able to step and take changes and to, my father at a very early age, this may be surprising, but my father at a very early age said, a woman's place is to walk 2 steps behind and to the right. And I distinctly remember being trained, if you would call it that, at the grocery store, that was my place and that was where I was to walk. And I was supposed to, sit pretty and sit nice and not speak unless spoken to. And there was something else that happened. He said, but never be disrespected and never be a nothing. You are something and you are always something no matter what you play. And that came to fruition, actually, interestingly, in the position that I have in Sabre. When the job came up, the position was originally titled non-air. And I don't know if anyone has ever encountered being offered a job of Senior Vice President of non. I can say I have. And I paused in that moment, and I thought about my father. And I thought, you know what? No. I'm really interested in what you're offering me, but that is not something that I want. And it actually posed a really interesting discussion. That was a risky move. It may not seem like it. It's just a title. It wasn't about the title. And I think in a small little way, it's those little choices and those little moments that help shape you. And for me, I think it's the courage to not be afraid, or to just be crazy enough to say those things at the time that you need to say it. And I'm excited to say that I am the SVP of Lodging, Ground, and Sea. Thank you very much.
So you see her courage on display. So I think all of you know the regard that I have for Melissa, and she is one of those warriors that has been in Expedia a long time and has risen through the ranks to a very senior role, was just recently promoted to take on the innovation and marketing of the lodging group. So I am sure you have lots of tips, because I always think when you are someone that rise within a company, your mistakes are on display for everyone, and it's always hard to overcome some of those kinds of challenges. So Melissa, what's the advice you offer to this group?
Well, there's 2 pieces of advice. One is from my mom, and it's very a little bit similar to Tracy's story. My mom said when I was in high school, ask for what you want. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. She said, nobody can read your mind. Tell people what you want. And I've used that in my career. And as I've wanted to grow disciplines or learn new disciplines, I've asked. And rarely will leaders say no when you're wanting to take on more responsibility. So that was young in my career. That was a really good piece of advice. And then later in my career, many years ago when I became SVP, I had a career coach. And I learned from her to not be a perfectionist. And that was probably the best piece of advice that I have received and have shared with many women. Women tend to try to be perfectionists and fail fast, learn, and move on. And that was really good advice at that stage.
Well, I think that's great advice for the audience. And Melissa has quite a following at Expedia. Her people are one of the most loyal group of individuals I've ever met, and I'm certain it's about the leadership that you bring to them every day. So thank you for sharing that. So we're going to move into the 1-minute response round now. We're talking about pace of change, and as leaders, how do you really keep up with that pace of change? Let's start with you, Tracy. 1 minute.
For me, it's we're in a unique position at Sabre because we are at such an intersection of what's happening with the vast array in a B2B space of so many people and seeing from startups to large companies. Keeping up with the pace of change for us is staying super close to the end customer. What's happening in the B2C space, what's happening in new and emerging technologies, and how do we adapt and listen. And I think the closer we can get to all constituents in the ecosystem of the space that we work in, but then also how can we step out of our ecosystem and participate in advisory boards for sectors outside of travel and learn from those. So for us, those are things that I do.
Great. Thank you. Jody, how about you?
I would say, intellectual curiosity and just a passion to continue to learn is something that's absolutely critical. I don't care, every opportunity you get, meet more people, go more places, read more things, expose yourself to things. I think using partners is a wonderful way to do that. And I found, entering into the travel industry, there are so many amazing partners I've learned so much from. So that's what I would say.
Great. And Melissa, how about you?
Customers and partners, absolutely. We do a lot of that. Expedia and I do a lot of that personally. One of the other areas where I learn a lot and where our leadership learns a lot is from our employees. Making sure that I do, 2 downs, 3 downs, and really talk to the employees on what they're hearing on the ground, what ideas that they have. We have a mantra at Expedia Group where there's no bad idea. They filter from everywhere in the organization. So I think making sure that you communicate with your employees. We're all in a global, most of us are in global businesses, and it's a little bit harder, but make the extra effort to talk to your employees.
Great. So we're going to do another 1 minute. We're going to start with you this time, Melissa. If you carried back several decades ago when you were starting your career, what would be the advice that you wish someone had given you?
Lots of advice. I would say taking risks and challenges, that's something that, when you're young in your career, it's a little bit more difficult to do. So take risks, and along with risk, find some sponsors that support you so that if you fail, when you take a risk, you've got someone that can catch you.
That's great advice. Jody, how about you?
My advice is actually very similar. I believe, put yourself out there, go for it. Don't be afraid to fail. You learn so much from failure. Surround yourself with people who support you, but go for it. You just can't lose.
Awesome. And Tracy, you?
Yeah, I thought mine was going to be unique, and it's basically the same thing. Number one is it's okay to fail. It's not okay to fail. It's imperative that you fail. Because if you don't fail and you don't fail early, you're going to be so scared of failure as you go later on in your career. It's going to paralyze you from taking risk, and that will limit your ability to go forward. So I think that's number one, and that's a really hard message to hear early on. And then secondly, I cannot undervalue how important it is to have a support network, whatever that looks like for you. It may be a babysitter, it may be a nanny, it may be a house. The happiest day of my life is when I finally earned enough money to get a house cleaner. That was like I had arrived.
Oh, how we relate.
I second that.
That's so true.
That was it. Support networks are important, and whatever that looks like for you, it's okay. Get there. Be clear on what you need.
I think you saw a lot of engagement with the audience. I just have to share, last night I was at a dinner with my VP of Travel, Wendy Farrell, and we were talking about the conversations that we had about how we've forgotten to turn on the vacuum machine, because over the years we've given up some of that functions. And it's very embarrassing when you've got that emergency and you've got to figure it out, and you can't remember.
I didn't know how to run the
At least you have
dishwasher.
one.
That is, I just admitted that in public. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That happened.
Okay, lightning round. So in 3 words or less, what is your outlook in the future of women in travel industry? Melissa, let's start with you.
Positive.
Oh, 3 words or less. One, I like it. Jody, how about you?
Women transforming results.
Oh, that's good too. Tracy, how are you going to follow that one?
Positive, persistent progress.
Oh boy, that's very good too. Okay, and we have one final close in terms of one more lightning round, but what would you ask or wish or do, or what would you ask of the leaders in this room to do upon leaving this event today? So Tracy, let's start that one with you.
I think number one, what I would ask is to be curious, to ask questions, to be out there and be informed, get informed. I think that's probably the first thing. What does that mean? That means read books, listen to podcasts, listen to your people. Just get informed on, do I care about women in business? Why? Do I care about diversity? Should I care? Do you care about it as a mother or a father or an aunt or an uncle? But I think that's number one. The second I would say is give back. So if you get informed and you read information and you're curious and you ask questions and you help others, then finally give back. Be a mentor. Help someone else. Give a path. Give advice. If something one of us said here possibly sparked something for you, do that for someone in your organization or in another organization. So be curious, be informed, and give back.
Thank you, Tracy. How about you, Judy?
I would say put yourself out there, take that step, don't be afraid, go for it. You know, it's similar to what I said before. I also believe in the lift as you climb. It's your responsibility. I mean, so many people have done so many great things for me that I now feel such a responsibility to help the people who come behind me. And I think the more we can have that lift as you climb mentality, the better.
Another beautiful statement. Thank you. Melissa?
I would say to the men and the women, bring the men along. You know, as we talk about women in leadership, sometimes it's an uncomfortable conversation, particularly for the men, and having those conversations of why it's important and the business results behind it, I think is crucial. And we've done a lot of that at Expedia and Agencia. Mark Hollyhead is a big supporter of diversity from our Agencia team, and having those conversations is important and has helped us with progress.
Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed the time with these women. It was an incredible honor for me to get to work with all of them in putting this panel together for you. And I fundamentally believe, my team always talks about GBTA and this particular event as being the Super Bowl of travel, but it is the peer networking and how we lift each other and learn from each other that I think is the wonderful part of this organization. I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to work with all of you on this, and I hope all of you enjoyed the thought leadership that they brought to us today. So thank you.
Thank you. All right.